Happy United Nations Day! So most of you won't know it, but today marks the 77th birthday of the UN. Why am I even doing this video when you probably don't know about this day and most people don't care? Because international days are important to be able to celebrate what has been achieved on a given topic and to think about what is next. And on this United Nations Day, it's quite a mixed picture, if I'm honest, but there's a lot of good things that have been done. First things first, let me explain what the UN is. I've been speaking to friends and family about it and realized that a lot of people don't know. So the United Nations were created after the Second World War, in big parts by the winners of the Second World War, in order to avoid anything like this ever happening again and to promote peace and security. Since then, quite a bit has happened. Many agencies have been created, including, for example, to distribute food, to help in resettling refugees and so on. And the UN has done an incredible job on a lot of topics. It's enabled countries to avoid some massive wars. It's enabled poverty to some extent to be alleviated and more cooperations on certain topics. Okay, that's it. I've been nice. Now let's actually talk about what's wrong with the UN. It's 2022 and Russia invaded parts of Ukraine and is constantly aggressing it and waging an insane war. China is committing genocide in Xinjiang. China is cracking down on rights and freedom in Hong Kong. China is cracking down on rights and freedom in Tibet. Wait, I can keep on going. There's also Taiwan and other provinces. Syria has committed countless crimes against humanity and war crimes against its population, and so on and so forth. At the same time, countries and the UN are systematically failing to address climate change. Poor countries are paying the price for the actions of rich countries and for the lack of actions of rich countries when it comes to climate. Multinational companies like Facebook, like Amazon, are not paying their taxes where they are operating. This is because of a lack of global taxation system. So as you can see, really the list is endless. I can keep on going. There's a lot of global topics that the UN is not dealing with. And it cannot. The UN was created 77 years ago by people 77 years ago, people mainly men from wealthy countries, and therefore was fit for purpose at the time. It's no longer fit for purpose. Whoever is watching this video and myself, we don't have a right to vote. We don't elect a parliament. We don't elect the leader of the UN. By the way, there's never been a female leader, just a small side note that is worth mentioning. In addition, the UN is not only highly undemocratic for citizens, but it's also highly unfair and undemocratic for its member states. There's something called the Permanent Five. The Permanent Five of the United Nations are the 5 countries that have won the Second World War. What I mean by won is, for example, France is a Permanent Five of the United Nations, and it's highly debatable whether it's won on its own or it was liberated, but that's a whole other debate. So the P5 are China, Russia, the US, the UK, and France. Those 5 countries have a right of veto on a lot of topics. Again, a veto right from 5 countries because of a war 77 years ago. And then you consider that Brazil or Japan, for example, don't. It's really weird, it's insane, and it's undemocratic. So because of all of this, of the structures, of the fact that citizens don't have a say, that you have some of the most far away in terms of opinions, countries like China and the US that can veto each other, can veto anything else and so on, very little gets done today on major topics. And this is not just problematic from an intellectual perspective. This is not intellectual masturbation. This is problematic for your life. Because our best hope for the future, when you consider the state of the world today, which is kind of depressing, is for us to unite. And I don't mean it in a super hippie type of way, although this is great as well. But we need to unite across borders. We need to be able to work together. We need to be able to share our best practices. But more than this, we need to be able to elect a government that represents us, the people, on topics that impact us all. Whether you're watching this from Nairobi, Tokyo, or any other place across the world, you will be impacted by climate, just like I will. Some of you will be impacted in a worse situation, in the worst case, by climate than I will, because I'm in London. You will be impacted by Amazon's lack of actual payment of the taxes. You will be impacted by the fact that some authoritarian countries are aggressing others. This will impact you down the line, but you have no way of solving it, and no one else does. It's not working out. So on this UN Day, 77 years after the creation, I think it's fundamental to start to actually think about what we have done so far, about all that has been achieved, and about the incredible amount of failures that the UN is facing today because of its structure, because it's member-led, because nation states always come first, because they always prioritize the national interests. but we do not live 2,000 years ago anymore. Our life is not defined by how far your horse can go in one day. You can take a plane and get on the other side of the world. Your life is defined by global events, by global trends. Whether you like it or not, it's a fact. And this means we need to deal with global trends and opportunities together. We need to unite. We need to join forces in order to be able to have a prosperous future, in order for humanity to thrive. And this is when I have a call to action. So I haven't introduced myself. My name is Colombe. I'm one of the co-founders of Atlas, which is a global movement working for global governance. Boring words, but important topic. We're working on the branding. This means that we want to actually create this global governance we need. For this, starting in January, we are launching consultations to hear from you and everyone else across the world what global democracy should be like, what global governance should be like, what competencies should be given at what level of governance. Is your local administration better placed to decide on the bus times in your city? Probably. Are they better placed? Is your country better placed to decide on how much Amazon should be taxed when it operates across the world? Probably not. Once we have adopted a vision for a global governance, it could be a country, it could be a global country, it could be a new federal world, it could be a new type of United Nations. Who knows? We'll run a campaign in order to make it happen, because guess what? The UN chief, on this UN day I can actually mention it, is selected by a few countries, not elected, every 5 years. And this will happen in a couple of years. So this will be the perfect moment to run a strong campaign, to elect democratically a candidate for us with this vision, and tell the UN, look, we're trying to collaborate. So consider a reform. Let's work on it. And if not, which is unfortunately likely to be the case, to be honest, well, let's start building this institution. I know it sounds insane, and I kind of want to laugh when I say this, but who said that citizens across the world cannot actually join forces to build the institutions, to build the countries, the governance that they will be part of? Why does it have to be a few powerful people in the room? So let's use modern tech. Let's look at crypto. Let's look at blockchain. Let's look at how we can actually build something from the ground up, and yes, have a global governance to represent us all and to unite.